Hello there. Hello, hello, hello. Oh my goodness. Good to see you all. Welcome. My subscribers, thank you so much. For those who are coming across this page for the first time, my name is Emma. And my channel is the DIY Christianity channel, the DIY Do It Yourself Christianity channel. I have brought you content from the Bible, straight from the Bible. So if you haven't watched that, please go and look it up. You will be benefited. Today, though, I'm not coming to per se speak about the Bible, but I'm coming to tackle a current event. As you all know, or as a majority of people are aware, because this has been spoken of for a few months now, there is the total eclipse that's supposed to happen um, on Monday, April 8th, on the Gregorian calendar. As you all know, I've talked about different calendars. We are currently using the Gregorian calendar. However, there is God's calendar that the Hebrew children used to use that's different, a lot different from the current calendar that we're using. So on God's calendar, it's going to happen on the 29th of Abib, is a Sabbath on for the Hebrew children. Abib 29, the first month, the 29th date of the first month. And it is a total eclipse. And we'll talk about that as we go along. But it is supposed to stretch all the way from Mexico to Canada. The width of it is 124 miles, or for those who are used to using kilometers, it's 240 kilometers wide. So it's a strip across the US. Um, and it stretches, internationally, from Canada to Mexico. Within the US, though, it's going to um, begin in Texas and end in Maine. So that strip will begin in Texas and end in Maine. I think it begins in Texas around 1:27 p.m. and it ends in Maine around 3:35 p.m. Um, but because the US has different time zones, and some other countries, I'm sure Canada and Mexico as well, um, it's different time zones through that. But anyway, there are states that are going to experience the total eclipse. So those states will have darkness, total darkness, for a period of time during daylight hours. And then the rest of the states, the rest of the states will only have a partial eclipse. So I want to say nearly everyone in the US will experience an eclipse of some sort on April 8th, 2024, either a total eclipse or a partial eclipse. Um, they're saying that it's going to last between 4 to 5 minutes, which is like the longest solar eclipse in this century, in the 21st century. Um, so, for those who are interested, it's a rare opportunity for you to go see a spectacular celestial event. So, um, if you're interested in seeing that, you can go ahead. I have heard of people that are actually moving from their home state where they are going to have a partial eclipse to go to another state, or those states that are going to experience um, the total eclipse, so they can capture this spectacular event. If you're one of those people, kudos to you. Kudos to you. I'm going to stay home. Nothing wrong with that, too. It's just me. It's just me. It's just me. I much rather, look at the news, look it up on YouTube, than go. But if you're one of those people who are set to just get up and travel, some people are taking a vacation in the cities and towns where this is bound to happen. So feel free to do whatever. Feel free to play as be you. I'm going to be me. I'm going to stay home and use that time to learn more and study more and, about various things, including even the solar eclipse and the significance of it. I am not. It's just me. I'm not one who's like easily frazzled with the news and what's going on too much. Um, However, I mean, I don't know. I had some impression to just come and talk about the solar eclipse. It's been pending, for a few maybe days now. I almost didn't want to do it, and then eventually I got some confirmation. I said, you know what, let me just go and do it. But I'm not gonna do a formal presentation like I've always done. I'm just gonna talk to you. How about that? It's different. It's a little different. Anyway, so for those who are wanting not to miss this spectacular event in person, please get your safety glasses, get whatever. I'm not here to talk about that because I don't know. I honestly don't know. I just hear that it's not good for you to look at it with your bare eyes. You need some safety glasses. Contact whoever so you can know what those glasses are. But I just say be safe while you're watching. You don't want to go blind or anything. Um, and go and watch this captivating sight. Go ahead. Um, be you, do you. Okay. So, what is a solar eclipse? Really, before we even talk much about it, it's good for those who don't understand what a solar eclipse is, so they can understand. Well, a solar eclipse happens when the moon passes directly between the sun and the earth. When that happens, then we call that an eclipse. Um, when the moon passes directly um, between the sun and the earth, the face of the sun becomes completely blocked. That means there'll be no sun really in the earth. There'll be no sun coming over to the earth. However, because the sun is much bigger than the moon, by the way, they are like 400 miles apart, and the sun is like 400 miles bigger than the moon. Um, because the sun is much bigger, there will be a ring of fire around it, a ring of fire around it. By the way, look up what ring of fire means. Um, I'm not, you know, I'm not gonna say much because I don't know much, but it's interesting when I just try to look up ring of fire, see what it kind of means. Anyway, yeah. So because the moon will cover a lot of the sun, there'll still be some sun in the form of a ring of fire around the moon, but a lot of the sun will be covered. That will mean that there is darkness, and the earth will look like it's dawn or dusk, even if it is in the middle of the day. And we know that this eclipse is going to happen in the middle of the day. So in the middle of the day, it will look like it's evening, like it's dawn or dusk. Yeah, so probably dawn, for the partial eclipse states, and then dusk for the total eclipse states. This like in the direct in mid at midday. Yeah. So at that time, when the moon is directly over the sun, it can be said that the moon is casting a shadow that will dramatically darken the skies, making the broad daylight to look like evening. And because it looks like it's evening, guess what will happen? For those of you who live in the country and have animals, and the animals go to fend for themselves, you'll find them coming home because they think it's evening. They get confused. They start coming back home. It's midday. They come back home as if it's evening. It's interesting. Um, when the animals are getting confused, the human beings are getting excited. But some might get a little confused because, or even scared because, it might bring some sort of thought about being an end time event, and that's why I came here, because people are asking questions. Is this the event that will spiral the final events of time? You know, um, is there a spiritual meaning, a spiritual significance to this? Um, well, that's why I came online. So during this time, the sun's magnificent corona, that ring of fire that I talked about, is called a corona, by the way. Corona. So I'll let you look up if it has any meaning with the coronavirus that has came a few years ago. But it's and I don't know if this is like a different type of corona we are going to experience. Anyway, I don't want to get into much into that. But the corona will be seen faintly glowing around the dark area where the sun and moon are lined up. And this, because of the corona that's around the moon, uh, it, that corona will give as much light as a full moon. So if you watched the moon, the full moon usually happens consistently. It always happens on the 15th of God's calendar. So if you see a full moon um on the 15th, I mean, if you see a full moon in the sky, and that's why I say this is very, very reliable for Sabbath keeping, for Sabbath, for knowing the seventh day. When you see the full bright moon, the full bright orb on God's calendar, that's the 15th. However, you have to learn more so you can know uh, when it is, because it appears on the 14th evening. And then when it appears on the 14th evening, that tells you that the following day is the Sabbath, and that Sabbath is dated the 15th. So you kind of have to learn and understand so that you're not celebrating Sabbath on the wrong day. But it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science at all. All you need to do is observe the moon cycles. The moon has a perfect 28-day cycle, perfect 7 days. Okay, it's new moon day that's not counted as part of the biblical calendar, and then a perfect 7 days, because the day after new moon begins the cycle of the moon. Perfect 7 days. The seventh day is a half moon, and that half moon will tell you that that's Sabbath. So even if you're in the bundos, um, with no Gregorian calendar in sight, no calendar, you wake up from a coma after several years or something, you don't know what it is. If you look at the sky, you should be able to tell uh, the date. You should be able to tell when Sabbath is. That's how God designed everything, but because the enemy is set to work against God, to do things against God, he's going to obliterate that. So he wiped out the using of God's calendar, and I'm trying to steer us to go back to using God's calendar, because you cannot make an error when you're using God's calendar. And then, of course, he gave us his own system to use, which is very erratic, is very erroneous, and it throws off everything because it's not in alignment with God's system. So anyway, we're here to talk about the eclipse. So and why I got into that is because I was talking about the full moon, like the light that emanates from the corona. That's the ring of fire that's around the moon, gives as much light as the full moon. So when you see the bright full moon, the bright orb of the moon in the sky, usually that night is usually very bright. You don't need a torch, you don't need a flashlight when you're walking in that night, because it's very clear. However, it is still, that it's still dark. So um, according to NASA, this is what NASA is saying. It's saying for observers in the middle of the path, they will get to experience the deepest portion of the eclipse, which will last about just over 4 minutes. So those who are going to be in the middle of the path, those who are going to be in the middle of that 240-kilometer wide strip, or 124-mile wide strip, they are going to experience the deepest part of the eclipse. And then on top of that, NASA plans to send fire rockets at the eclipse so that they can study the atmosphere. I don't know about that, but I guess it's a rare opportunity for them to be able to experiment because like to experiment like what happens in such a state, because that condition is not readily available all the time. And so some things that usually happen at that time, like off that time, some things that usually happen when the moon is not in alignment with the sun will not be able to happen when it's in alignment. And so they have plenty of opportunity to study um, when the sun and the moon are not in alignment. But then when they come in alignment, this is like their rare opportunity in the next 20 years to find out what happens. So they're going to be shooting fire rockets at the eclipse to study the atmosphere. Uh, the time of the eclipse, where I live, near Nashville, Tennessee. The time is from 2:44 to 3:20 p.m. Then that's Central Time. I found that a little interesting because it kind of mimics the time that Jesus died on the cross. Because when Jesus died on the cross, there was no, or rather, the earth went dark. There was no light. There was darkness that encompassed everywhere from the 12th hour, from 12 o'clock, let me say, from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And so you can see these eclipses kind of mimicking the hours that Jesus was on the cross, 12:44 to 3:20 p.m. So it lasts about the same amount of time. And then they call it APEP, 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 APEP. That's what they call it. Well, APEP is an acronym for atmospheric perturbations around the eclipse path. Atmospheric perturbations, sorry, atmospheric perturbations around the eclipse path. That's what it stands for. But when you look it up, it is also the name of an Egyptian servant deity, an Egyptian science deity, whatever they call it, deity, an Egyptian servant god. And it's also a nemesis for the sun god Ra. Ra, the sun god Ra, has an attribute that of one that inflicts retribution or revenge. One that inflicts retribution or revenge. Um, if you look up Ra, it means that if you look up Ra, Ra is said to have to have uh, he's said to have he's said to be the creator of the universe as we know it in Egyptian mythology, and that would make him more to the level of the biblical character Yahweh. So in other words, Ra is claiming to be God. He's claiming to be the creator of the universe. um, and he has that attribute of inflicting retribution or vengeance. So I don't know exactly like what that means, but I have a feeling that they are trying to tell us that it's time for the Antichrist to take over. You know, it's time for the Antichrist to take over. Anyway, talking about the because like I said, Apep is an Egyptian, is the name of an Egyptian servant, sorry, an Egyptian serpent deity or deity that, also a sun god. The Egyptian serpent, talking about it, if you look that up, he's a crooked serpent. He's a piercing serpent. Um, it's interesting because when you open Isaiah 27 verse 1, it says, "In that day the Lord with his saw and great strong sword shall punish Leviathan, the piercing serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent, and he shall and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea." That's Isaiah 27 verse 1, which talks about the crooked serpent, the Leviathan, the piercing serpent. And we see that these solar eclipse is named after the Egyptian god Ra, um, and or is Apep. is the other name, and that's really a piercing serpent or a crooked serpent. So I have a feeling that we can expect after these um, these eclipse, we can expect a lot of mayhem and destruction. Um, Perhaps a collapse of power grids and communication systems. And like I said, probably the revealing of the Antichrist, because this has been a plan for years. It has been a plan for years. I'm not giving dates because I don't know, but I can see that it's a setup. Is a setup for the Antichrist to take over, because if you know anything about Bible prophecy, uh, even the Bible itself in Second Thessalonians 2:3 says what, that day will not come until um, there is a falling away fast, which I know that the falling away has already happened. There is right now it's easy to see that people are divided. Husband and wife are already divided. And I'm not talking about necessarily physical division, but rather spiritual division in terms of what they believe, what they do. You know, talking about the what I'm talking about, the jab, the you know the prick. Talking about that, husband and wife are on different pages. They're on totally different pages on that. You know, um, Talking about different things you see in society. People are totally. They may be married, but they are on totally different pages. And even within churches, people are separating. They are changing. Because they end up believing different things. So I believe that the falling away has already happened and is continuing to happen. Um, so what is left is that the man of sin needs to be revealed now, the son of perdition. He is going to be revealed. And I think these solar eclipse is a setup for that, because um, it's my personal opinion. I don't think this is an act of nature. It's just me. I don't think it's an act of nature. I think it's man-made engineering. It's some kind of weather engineering. And I believe that the powers that be are trying to tell us something. They're trying to tell us something. um, so you might hear calls for unity, ecumenism, like churches coming together. You might hear that as well, uh, because that is what the powers that be have always been planning. And um, and so be prepared. So what are the spiritual lessons that we can learn from these? Well, we all know that you require special equipment to to watch a solar eclipse. What does that tell me? It requires special preparation to see the Son of Righteousness, who is Christ. Special preparation. If you look at the eclipse without proper equipment, you'll go blind. You cannot stand in the presence of God if you did not do special preparation. You did not get rid of sin, because you'll be consumed. So I'm just telling you now that be prepared to stand in the presence of God. Be prepared to meet the Son of Righteousness, because I think things are going to go rapid, after these. Things are going to go rapid. There's going to be rapid movements. And sooner or later, the Son of Righteousness is going to be here. And if you're not prepared, you will be consumed when you come in his presence. Um, Also, another lesson is that the moon is smaller than the sun, but even though it's smaller, it's able to block out um, the light from the sun. Of course, not completely, because the sun is bigger. The sun is more powerful, but it blocks a lot of it. Um, But what I learned from that is that even the smallest sin can keep Christ from reaching our souls. Even the smallest sin can keep Christ from reaching our souls. Um, for example, even like, even a small penny, you take a small coin and put it on your eye, close to the eye. If you put it close, it can hide the sun. You may not be able to see that sun. So the smallest sin can really blind us, from reaching, can blind the light of Christ from reaching our souls. Also, that the self can blind us from achieving greater things. um, the question that I'd like to ask you is, what is the closest to us? What is something that's very close to us that is absorbing all our attention? Um, are we blinded by the treasures and pleasures of the world that eclipse things of infinite value? It is the dis- decided or desired effort of the enemy to eclipse the things of infinite value. That's the desired, that is the desired purpose of the enemy, to eclipse the things of infinite value. Now, are you going to be eclipsed for it, or are you going to make a conscious effort not to be eclipsed by the treasures and pleasures of this world? I know they are inviting many times, but you have to exercise self-control. You have to be mindful of where your spiritual journey is going. Otherwise, you'll fall for everything. And if you don't stand up for anything, you will fall for anything. So I am encouraging you to make a decided change in your spiritual walk, in your spiritual journey at this time. Um, you know, don't have both your legs, don't have, yeah, both your legs on both paths. It is a time for you to decide to take on one path. Choose you today whom you will serve, whether you will serve the enemy or whether you will serve God, and stick to the path that you have chosen. Um, do not lose sight of things of infinite value. Like Mark 8:36 says, "For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul?" Can you ponder that? Ponder that. Are you going to gain the whole world, enjoy the pleasures and treasures that are only temporary, and lose your soul because you despise things of an infinite value? Is that what you're going to do? So, in brief, the solar eclipses, to me, they remind us of the work of Satan. They remind us of the work of Satan, and that he's always trying to come between the soul and God. So this is a nature lesson that I'm telling you today. I'm using the physical things that we can see to look into the spiritual. So the solar eclipses, they remind us of the work of Satan, and that he's always trying to come between the soul and God. 2 Corinthians 4 verse 4 says what? "In whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine upon them." So it is the decided purpose of the enemy to blind the children of God, so that they don't see the image of God, they don't see Christ. But even so, he even though he does that, he will not be able to completely uh, blind the children of God, at least not all of them. And that's why we find Isaiah 40 verse 5 telling us, but even um, it tells us that, "And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord had spoken it." So in the end, even though we may not be able to see the glory now, in the end we shall see the glory, for the mouth of the Lord had spoken it. So as I end my talk today, as I ended, the question I would like to ask you today: where is your soul? Where is your soul? You know, if this eclipse begins the escalation of end time events, have you thought about your soul? Where is your soul? Where have you placed your soul? Have you thought about eternal things, or are you just dwelling on the temporary? So I don't know, but I've shared my thoughts, and I really think that this is just going to kind of begin some of the um, end time events. And once they begin, they're going to spiral really quickly. So I appeal to you, my viewer, my subscriber, my watcher, I appeal to you to make up your mind. Choose you this day whom you will serve. Make up your mind. Don't waver between two opinions. Do not just be kind of in the middle. Make up your mind. If you're going to serve Baal, serve him. But if you're going to serve the Most High, serve him, and serve him today. And it is my prayer and my hope that you will choose the Most High. God bless you. And again, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to this channel, the DIY Christianity channel, the Do It Yourself Christianity channel. I hope to see you in the future again, as we continue on this journey. I still have more presentations coming. So stay tuned, and God bless you and keep you until the next time. Bye-bye. Bye.